Good evening, this is Maestro Pertella with a Dawn of War 2 Retribution Elite Mod cast. Today we have a 1v1 on Calderis Refinery. Our first player is Floid, he's one of the best Tyranid players around these days. And here he's playing as this big Tyranid Hive Tyrant. A very tanky melee hero, can upgrade to become even tankier and even more powerful. He also walks through cover, cannot be suppressed, and is also immune to knockback. On the other side of things, we have Excalibur, the famous Sword of Legend, playing as Sindri, Trollface, Chaos Sorcerer. This much smaller hero compared to the Hive Tyrant. He's a bit of a trickster, has some long-range spells like Doom Bolts, can teleport, and has some crazy things in Tier 3. Black Legion right here. This is Excalibur. Tex is saying in the chat that the Sorcerer owns the Hive Tyrant, which I think is interesting of him to say that. Generally thought that the Sorcerer struggles a bit against tanky melee heroes. The Hive Tyrant is a tanky melee hero, and this is actually something that I think I've talked to about Tex on this very subject, but he claims that the Sorcerer owns the Hive Tyrant. We'll see what happens, and that's exactly what Floyd said. We'll see. This is a beta. This is a 2.1 beta forecast. Beta 5 is actually already out, and to be honest, the final release of 2.1 will probably be out by the time this cast goes live. So Tex goes for a very typical opening. One Chaos Space Marine into a second Heretic squad. One of his Heretic squads is idling right here. Was supposed to be capping, while the other Heretic squad is over here engaging the Hive Tyrant, which is a fight that they do not want. This will just be the Heretics bleeding models, while the Hive Tyrant does not take any bleed. On the other side over here, we have the second Heretic squad along with the Chaos Space Marines and the Sorcerer kind of walking together as a blob. You do need to, I think, in Tier 1, you do need to keep some of these units together when you're playing the Sorcerer. You need that range fire support from the Chaos Space Marines to threaten your opponent's units at ranged. Also, getting a 20% damage reduction from being infiltrated by the Heretics. You need the Heretics for the infiltration, and you also need the Heretics around so that the Sorcerer can consume and spam Doom Bolts. Doom Bolts is a very long-range area of effect spell. It's really, really good. So you really want to try to keep using that as much as possible, especially against these blobbed-up Tyranids. If Floyd keeps these two Termagants together like this, they will take a ton of damage, exactly just like that. Floyd should start splitting those Termagants so that only one of those squads will get hit so hard. And wow, look at all those kills on the Hormagaunts. The Hormagaunts will probably get out of there alive, but now forced melee by the Chaos Space Marines and the Sorcerer on those Termagants force them off as well. Some big early victories by Excalibur. Does have a Noise Marine squad out. They have not fought any units yet. They will be very good for shutting down the Termagant blobs, as well as for bashing this only one power node. So Tex is kind of taking the advantage in map control, but the Hive Tyrant of all units is backcapping. Does have Rending Talons, a weapon for the Hive Tyrant. Gives him the Seismic Roar ability. Will allow him to disrupt any Heretics that try to surround him. So that means Tex will be better off keeping his Heretics away from the Hive Tyrant at all costs. Noise Marines open fire with their Flamer, but they are getting charged by melee. Should use the Cacophony ability, but now they are taking shots from the Termagants. This Chaos Space Marine squad does have Eternal War, but it's at the point where it might lose a model. And let's see, will these Noise Marines get out of here without losing a model as well? Yes, it does look like they will. So some good engagements by Tex. Even though he had to retreat there, he did not lose any models on his Chaos Space Marine squad, which is almost level 2, by the way, as well as his Noise Marine squad. It did get some EXP from that engagement. So Tex was... I said he was winning on the map control, but that might not entirely be true. He did have 2 VPs. He still has 500 left. No VPs have ticked down in Floyd's favor. This Hive Tyrant getting dangerously low on health, and that's actually going to be a wipe on the Hive Tyrant. A little slow reaction from Floyd. He was trying to use the Seismic Roar ability there, but it was just a little bit too slow. It looked like it was going to go off, but the Heretics did wipe him. So Floid, unfortunately, not paying attention there, especially considering that was surrounding the Hive Tyrant with the Heretics. Otherwise, would not have been a good idea. Long tier 1s from both these players. Tex now with a Havoc squad, suppression team that suppresses instantly, which is one of the best things about it. Not as killy as the other suppression teams, but that instant suppression is extremely useful, especially if Floyd's going to be blobbing up. So once again, Floyd's going to need to focus on, or should start focusing on, separating his units a bit more. Especially these double termagants, which he's running around blobs. They are taking losses. 2 termagants die right there. Probably going to have a third one die. And what he is doing, what Floyd is doing, is that instead of instantly retreating because he got suppressed, he's actually just slowly walking them out of there. And now they're actually reinforcing from this brood nest. The brood nest is a global from the Hive Tyrant. Basically, it is a reinforcement point. Also provides health regeneration, which we can see from all those green hexagons. Noise Marines lead the charge, which is not that great of an idea. Do use Cacophony to knock down all these Hormigons, and that does allow the Havoc time to set up, but 1 Noise Marine squad goes down. And the Havoc will... Oh, the Hive Tyrant is outside of the Havoc's firing arc. The Havoc will start firing at this huge blob, but the Hive Tyrant is already around it, and Floyd knows that the suppression is right now working on the blob, so the Hive Tyrant gets in there, and Tex is going to have to retreat. Might lose his Noise Marine squad right here. That would be a terrible early loss, and wow, they went down really fast. Didn't even get a chance to run out of there. Double Heretics running in here. Not actually that good of an engagement for them, and I think one of the Heretic squads will wipe as well. Ooh, so some bad engagements for Tex. Does throw down a really powerful Doom Bolts. Needs to Doom Blast with these Heretics and threaten the rest of those guys, but they're starting to get reinforced from this brood nest, so they will not get wiped. So 2 squad losses from Tex. Very sad to see that. Obviously, double Heretics is proving itself to be a very strong build these days. Will that other Heretic squad go down as well? This lone Heretic model just barely gets out of the live. This Sorcerer might even go down if Tex is not being careful. So right now the Sorcerer is not owning the Hive Tyrant. And even this Sorcerer can go down if the Hive Tyrant gets in the retreat path. I think 1 hit might actually do that, and Tex is actually saying, wow. So it took 2 hits from the Hive Tyrant, but still, wow. So some major losses for Tex. He is going into tier 2 when Floyd actually isn't even that close to getting there. So Tex does have an economic advantage somehow, despite not having these side power nodes, but he did have a full generator farm up, while Floyd still hasn't gotten any generators and can't even afford to. So I think it was really surprising there to see Tex lose all those squads. The Noise Marines were pretty clearly overextended, and then losing one of the Heretics was also sad too. I mean, putting them into the melee blob, having them Doom Blast and stall out is good, but it kept them in there too long. The melee blob was getting support from these double termagants, and then Tex did not have Aspiring Champions on either of his Heretics. Now, getting those Aspiring Champions is, in my opinion, I mean, it is a really good upgrade. In my opinion, it's almost necessary, because Heretics are so squishy. They may or may not have been able to make it out of that engagement if they had the Aspiring Champion. But there are so many times when that Aspiring Champion is the difference between Heretics getting wiped, the difference between Heretics losing 8 models and Heretics getting wiped. Hormigans try to bash some power, but they can't do it just by themselves. Not enough time. Oh, we need a Doom Blast on retreat. One of the strange things is that apparently Tex does not realize how good Doom Blast is on retreat. I mean, this Hormigon brood just barely got out of there. I think with Doom Blast, that would have been a dead Hormigon brood. So, whenever you're trying to kill retreating units, you actually should use Doom Blast. Unless you're going after a hero who will probably not die from Doom Blast. Although you should use Doom Blast if you think the hero will die if you use Doom Blast. But especially against those squads with so many models, you should use Doom Blast because you'll get a few models. Especially against squishier squads like Hormigons. And right now these Heretics will beat the Hormigons. They have more health. This Heretic squad is level 3, amazingly. Eternal War Chaos Space Marine's also level 3, so a lot of leveling on Tex's units. Even his Havoc squad is almost level 2. And he should actually... Oh, he's going to set up. I think he might have even been better off force meleeing with the Havocs. So Tex is still in this game. Getting a Blood Crusher does have that tech advantage, but he's way behind in map control. Pretty much everything is Floid, except for everything belongs to Floid, except for Tex's natural power farm, his natural victory point, and the contested victory point. So Tex is getting that Blood Crusher out. He will have, unfortunately, his Blood Crusher. He can certainly, as long as Floyd does not have any AV, he could just run it up here and take out the Brood Nest and nothing will threaten it. But Floyd is getting to tier 2. He will probably be able to afford a Venom Brood very quickly. And then his Hive Tyrant, he already did get a weapon, but he could easily upgrade to the Rending Claws. No, these are the Rending Talons. The Crushing Claws, which will do AV damage. Floyd actually getting a Zoanthrope, though. He, of course, does not know about this Blood Crusher yet, but he could always cancel the Zoanthrope if he sees the Blood Crush and get a Venom Brood instead. Or he could keep the Zoanthrope, and the Zoanthrope could use its ability to snare the Blood Crusher, while the Hive Tyrant could maybe get those Crushing Claws. So he is keeping that Zoanthrope. Does see that Hive Tyrant, and the Zoanthrope can use that Warp Fire ability to snare. I'm afraid I actually don't even know what the ability on the Zoanthrope is called. It is a little embarrassing to say that as a caster who should be very knowledgeable about the game, but Tyranids are by far my least favorite race, and I already know a lot about them considering how much I don't play them. And Floyd's still running with almost no power farm whatsoever. Another interesting thing we could see is that since there have been so many losses in this game, both players have a ton of red. Tex has over 500 red. He could start throwing down some Dark Flames. In my opinion, not actually that great of a global unless it's used to kill a unit on retreat or combined with the Icon of Tzeentch. But it can still, right now it would still help, especially considering Tex is behind on units. Might need that extra help. This Blood Crusher is actually going to die, which is really sad for Tex to lose that Blood Crusher so fast after it had just been bought. Basically charged it into a blob and lost it. It did get snared by the ability on the Zoanthrope, and then it actually got taken down by the Warriors, even with the Hormigons supporting a little. Sorcerer, meanwhile, does have Robes of Torment that will allow him to control most of the... It's basically a snare, a unit snare, an infantry snare. This Chaos Heretic squad needs to retreat before it takes another Zoanthrope hit, or it will get wiped. And then... So anyway, the Sorcerer does have Robes of Torment, will allow him, it's an infantry snare, will allow him to snare infantry in an area. Particularly works well against melee units, since there is a center mass that you can shoot, and that will get rid of the chains. But melee units obviously can't shoot, especially not these Hormigons, unlike melee units for other races that do have some kind of secondary ranged weapon that's just not very powerful. But in this case, the Chains of Torment will allow him to control these Hormigons. Both of the Hormigon squads, the Warriors, as well as the Hive Tyrant. Especially useful against the Hive Tyrant, who will not lose models quickly, will not lose models at all. Wow, almost a wipe on this Hormigon Brood, and that is going to be a wipe. Wow, a wipe. So he combined the two abilities on the Sorcerer. First, the Doom Bolts, which does extremely good damage in an area. Then he used the Rod of Warpfire, has another area of effect ability. It's basically like a plasma cannon, an ability plasma cannon. Also does knockback, and since those units were knocked back, the Sorcerer actually just ran in there for melee. Only one model was left, so the Sorcerer just wiped an entire squad by himself. He is at level 6, which is pretty impressive. We now have a Dreadnought out for Texcalibur, a Tzeentch Dreadnought, an extremely good unit overall. This is one of my favorite units to use as Chaos. People complain that it's a little too good, and to be honest, it probably is. It's getting some, it is getting some nerfs. I believe it did get nerfs in this beta, and it will have some nerfs in the final version, but still a very good unit overall. That Frenzied Barrage does both damage. Look at the area effect damage that Frenzied Barrage ability does. You mainly use that Frenzied Barrage ability for the suppression, but if the missiles actually hit, they will do a ton of damage. It's just that they're very inaccurate, so most of the time they will not actually hit. This Chaos Dreadnought needs to turn around, force melee, does actually surprisingly does not get a Warrior Brood model. I thought he would get one there at least. Hormagaun's bashing over here. Tex is going to send his Chaos Sorcerer again, and maybe we'll try to... Oh, he's using Sigil of the Rift. Warps that Hormagaun Brood right in there. They're now getting chased down by the Termagants. I mean, they're getting chased down by the Khorne Chaos Space Marines, as well as these Chaos Heretics. Again, Tex needs to Doom Blast. It's so good on retreat. He may have been able to wipe that Hormagaun Brood as well if he had Doom Blasted. And we do have a power farm up over here. One of the great... The Tzeentch Dreadnought, since it is an AV unit, it will be extremely good at wiping generators. But Tex certainly does need to be careful about keeping it in the back here with no support. That Zoanthrope can snare it from long range. Right now he doesn't have his AV... Floyd doesn't really have his AV around to deal with it, but still has to be careful. And both players still sitting on a ton of red. I have not seen any globals from either player, and both players can start using globals to turn the tide of engagements. Floyd at 626, Texcalibur at 823, getting even more from that power bash. And Floyd is actually already in tier 3, did not even notice, and is getting a Lictor. And it is impressive that Tex is managing to stay in this game, despite having, despite those early unit losses, and he's having so many, he has so much fewer units. And I've actually found this in some of my own games, that strangely Chaos sometimes, even with getting some units wiped, or even with just having fewer units period, because Chaos generally has fewer units than races like Orcs or Tyranids, they still seem to somehow be able to win the game, or at least even keep up. Certainly Tex hasn't won this game yet, but he has the advantage in VPs. We'll probably use his generator farm now. Doesn't have enough support. He is bringing his Tzeentch Dreadnought back here. But basically Chaos somehow actually able to stay in the game or even win despite having fewer units and losing map control. Tex is getting map control though. His Sorcerer is up here decapping Floyd's natural. It's going to be almost a 3-cap for Tex. But Tex is losing his power farm, and his entire power farm will get wiped. So Floyd does get off of Power Bash. One of the things you sometimes want to do is... oh! Khorne Space Marines, will they get in the retreating path of that Zoanthrope? That might be a dead Zoanthrope. Looks like that Zoanthrope will get out of there. It was already in its retreat. The Khorne Space Marines did not quite get in the retreat path, but that Zoanthrope did go down to half health. But anyway, one of the things you should do if you get Power Bash, and if you can't prevent the Power Bash, you will want to try to counter bash if possible. Force melee and melee on these Warrior Brood models. Should get at least one model. No. So Khorne Space Marines not proving to be quite the retreat killers that I always imagined them to be. They do have that 6 speed. They are a pretty powerful squad. Oh, but those Khorne Space Marines need to turn around now and try to go for that Hive Tyrant. Oh, but again, they're not quite in its retreat path. They came in at a little bit of an angle, and it's already gaining a lot of speed. When you retreat, you actually gain more, your units gain more speed the longer they retreat. So right now, that Hive Tyrant is going very fast. This Lictor from Floyd so far has actually been mostly used as a capping unit. And certainly that's one of the good things about the Lictor. It is just a single model that can infiltrate, so it's good for backcapping. But at the same time, it is kind of a shame to not use the Lictor in combat and just use it for capping. Just because it's actually a very powerful unit. Does need to be extremely careful in the fight that it's in now, though. It will lose to Khorne Space Marines one-on-one. Luckily, the Lictor had support. One of the great things about Khorne Space Marines is that they are very good for killing single entity units, especially single entity units that are not like full-on melee heroes. So, I mean, against the Bro Captain and the Chaos Lord, they might have a little more trouble, although even then, they can really threaten those units. But especially for the Lictor, although it is very powerful, it cannot disrupt in melee, so the Khorne Space Marines would win that fight. We did see the Chaos Dreadnought there was in a ton of trouble, was snared, got surrounded by warriors and other units, so Tex did use the Warp Global to warp it out of there and teleport it to safety. The Tzeentch Dreadnought is trying to protect the power farm, but these missiles are just hitting against this heavy covered cliff. Tech's obviously not quite paying attention, and he needs to like move it back over there. So Tex puts up a full generator farm. Tex actually with a massive power float. Units getting blasted by the Zoanthrope. Needs to get that heretic out of there. Tex does not see it. Oh my god. Just barely gets that heretic out of there. The Havocs as well. The Havocs could have been wiped there. And this is a risky engage. Wow, massive Doom Bolts combined with the Tzeentch missile launcher, that barrage. The only thing is right now I was gonna say the Tzeentch Dreadnought is in a little bit of trouble. Oh, Chains of Torment goes off right over there, and these warriors might actually get wiped. Khorne Space Marines do get that final kill. That is one of the great things about Khorne Space Marines. Khorne Space Marines should not go after the Hive Tyrant. Instead, should chase after that Zoanthrope. That is what they're... Because if they get in on the Zoanthrope at all, they can threaten to wipe it. Dark Flames goes off on top of this Brood Nest. Ooh, that's good to know. That a Dark Flames will just instantly wipe a Brood Nest. It's good to know that you can have that counter. And it's good. Look at this level 8 Sorcerer. Sigil of the Rift, Rose of Torment, and Rod of Warpfire. So he does have that melee unit control with the Chains of Torment. And he can also do a ton of damage with both Doom Bolts and the Rod of Warpfire. And especially using them consecutively. Since the Sorcerer is leveled, he has enough energy that he can use both Doom Bolts and the Rod of Warpfire consecutively. Which is going to be extremely powerful. Especially with the way Floid has been blobbing. Actually, and look at how much health the Sorcerer has as well. 1,000 health. That's actually really good. Considering the Sorcerer is not considered a tanky melee hero, that's really good. This Chaos Dreadnought needs to be careful that Lictor uses its jump to get in on the Havoc. And Tex, now he's a little bit overextended, to be honest. Many of his units are being threatened. He is threatening that Tyrannid Blob. And there's a Tyrannoformation. This Chaos Dreadnought almost dead. Will it run into one of the spires? The units are his infantry units are mostly getting knocked over, and Tex needs to make some kind of purchase. Floyd, oh, there goes one more shot from that Zoanthrope. Does take out that Chaos Dreadnought. Did not quite catch it on the camera. Jeez. And that was a Tyrannoformation too, a nuke from the Tyranids. Both these players have been saving so much red. Tex himself can use an Imperial Abyss. I actually think an Imperial Abyss right on top of the Zoanthrope, as long as it does not retreat immediately, would actually kill it. Like, if Floyd is really paying attention and he sees that circle, he could get the Imperial Abyss. But Tex actually gets Chaos Terminators, but he still has enough red to do that Imperial Abyss. So Floyd actually down to 89 VPs. That's going to be a dead Hive Tyrant. And those Chaos Space Marines should actually, I was going to say they should run up, but they might be running into the trap of these Termagants. And after taking a shot from the Zoanthrope, they will risk losing models when approached, if they're going to approach those Termagants. I mean, that being said, ooh, you know what? Chaos Terminator's got a new Stormbolter model. It's actually the Chaos Lord's Stormbolter, or is it Twin Link Bolter? Anyway, Chaos Terminators are right in here. Chaos Terminators, Lightning Claws. Those Lightning Claw Terminators should actually turn around and attack the Zoanthrope. Any one of these units should attack the Zoanthrope, because they will really threaten to wipe it. Oh, but there's that Carnifex. Alright, those Chaos Terminators in a little bit of trouble right now. They have gotten a health increase. Their health does go up to 4,500 now once they upgrade to Lightning Claws. And they are chasing after this Zoanthrope. I think they actually can afford to just chase after that Zoanthrope. And Tex will then use the Warp Global to get them out of there. There's not a whole lot there's not a whole lot the Zoanthrope can do. But these Hive nodes right here will actually disrupt the Terminators, and that's kind of a wasted play from Tex. He probably does get the map control of pushing Floyd all the way back into his base. Oh, and then this Lictor in a lot of trouble. And again, Tex needs to Doom Blast. Although the Doom Blast may have actually not been worth it. When you're dealing with a single model, if you're not going to kill that single model with the Doom Blast, then it's probably not worth it. Alright, Tex still has enough red to do an Imperial Abyss. That Imperial Abyss could be used for a number of things. If he can get a snare on this Carnifex, say with maybe the Plague Marine squad that he's building right now, he could actually use the Imperial Abyss on the Carnifex, and it will do a lot of damage because he'll be able to keep the Carnifex in the center rings. And again, he needs those Heretics in there. Doom Blast. Doom Blast. Does not Doom Blast. Oh, and now these Heretics in trouble again, but level 4 Heretics. Level 4 Khorne Space Marines as well. Tech's getting 1 Plague Marine squad and a 2nd Plague Marine squad. This will actually, if he can put both Plague Marine squads on the field, they will do not just damage, but a snare to this Carnifex. Carnifex has upgraded to Carnifex. Upgraded to Thornback, rather. Needs to get that Sorcerer out of there. Does not want him to die. Not with how well the Sorcerer has been doing. And with how expensive it will be to get him back right now. Oh, but the Carnifex charges. He cannot use an Imperial Abyss on the Carnifex if the Carnifex is right in his base. But now with the... Oh, this is actually looking good. If he can get that 2nd Plague Marine squad out on the field. Oh, but now the Carnifex is right up against those Plague Marines. Lightning Claw Terminators doing a ton of damage. Floid getting a lot of map control back by pushing Tex back in his base. But needs both of those... He really needs those Plague Marines not so close. And needs whatever... Tex needs to get whatever AV he can muster to take out this Carnifex. It's right in his base. I mean, the best way to deal with that Carnifex, at least with what Tex currently has, would have been to double snare it. The snares do snack. Double snare it and then use the Imperial Abyss. It's now a 3-cap for Floid. So Floyd's down to 59 VPs, but with that 3-cap, he's going to be getting them back very quickly. Tex needs to get back out on the field. His Terminators are going to be in base for a while, though, regenerating their health. So they will be off the field. Tex losing pretty much the entire map. And here we have... That's a Capillary Tower. It's actually from the Tyranno formation, so that it can be crushed. And this will be a... This could be a dead Lictor. All right, the Lictor does retreat in time. Alright, so right now Tex needs to... He should probably capture with his Heretics. And then have the rest of his units fight. And he could even use the Tyranno formation. I mean, not the Tyranno formation. He could use the Imperial Abyss, even just on these Termagants, to actually just break that line of support. But right now he has that Imperial Abyss. I want him to use it. I like seeing Imperial Abysses, even though it's... People have been talking about this, but I actually think it's not that great as much as I like to use it a lot. If he actually uses it right here, that could be good too. I'm talking about the Imperial Abyss a lot. This is a Capillary Tower. This one is from the Infestation. I think all of these are from the Infestation. And that's going to be buffing the Tyranid units. This is going to be a very difficult line for Tex to break. And I think one of his best chances is just going to be that Imperial Abyss. Because if those units don't retreat, they will be taking a lot of damage. And it's getting really down to the wire because of how much... oh, and we need Warp Terminators. They actually use their teleport offensively. Khorne Space Marines running in there, going for that Zoanthrope. Khorne Space Marines do need to go for that Zoanthrope. They will take it out. Will they get it? Oh, but a special attack actually prevents them from doing it. Now they need to focus on the Brood Nest. Khorne Space Marines should turn around, focus on the Brood Nest. They should not be running into base, but Tex has definitely lost track of them. Oh my god, Gene Stealers. That's going to be terrible for Tex. Needs to take out this Brood Nest of all things that's giving the Tyranids so much support. I think he will take it out with his Plague Marines. So it goes down, and Tex does get that middle cap off. This Hive Tyrant in here has been upgraded to the Bonded Exoskeleton. Gives him an extra 300 health and also allows him to become invulnerable. That Bonded Exoskeleton is good for so many things. First of all, just for making him tougher. And it will also be extremely good for capping in late game, because the Hive Tyrant will be extremely difficult to force off the cap. But Texas Sorcerer is right here and needs to use Chains of Torment. Needs to use Chains of Torment, please. Gets a second squad of Terminators, but I mean, that Chains of Torment is so important. Needs to be able to control those melee units. Still does have the Robes of Torment, and another Tyranno formation. This one goes off on the Havocs. Those Havocs get out of there. A lot going on in this last battle. Tex still with enough red to do that Imperial Abyss. He managed to get through the engagement without even using the Imperial Abyss, which I guess is a testament to how much of a better player he is than me, because I would have used the Imperial Abyss in that engagement. It could have won the engagement, or it could have not, but Sigil of the Rift to get... I don't quite know what Tex was doing there. Tex uses Sigil of the Rift on one of his Terminator squads to get them out. So, smart play by Tex. Sent his Heretics to cap the natural, but they did take a ton of losses. Lost everything but the Heretic, and that's exactly what I'm talking about. That Aspiring Champion can really make the difference between keeping that Heretic squad alive or losing it entirely. 5 VPs left for Floid. That will be the end of the game in favor of Texcalibur, the famous Sword of Legend. Did actually lose his Khorne Space Marines and all that. They must have run all the way up into this base. So that was a pretty awesome game. Hope you enjoyed it.